Welcome to When We're Not Hustling, a podcast where sex workers talk about everything but. I'm your host, Jessie Sage.
Put away the lingerie. I want to know you. Tell me more. I don't care about the news. I want to hear about you and see the world from your point of view. The coffee's already made, so I'll part the shades, just pull up a chair and tell me more.
When We're Not Hustling is a weekly podcast that explores the lives and identities of sex workers outside of our work personas, our personal philosophies, ambitions, families, relationships, passions, spirituality, and so much more. We talk about our lives beyond the job, asking, what does the flexibility of sex work allow us to do, and who does it allow us to be? On this show, we learn who sex workers are outside of the work we're known for. When We're Not Hustling is an exploration of the people behind the fantasies. When We're Not Hustling is brought to you by Assembly 4. Assembly 4 is a collective of sex workers and technologists working to bring the overall cost of sex work down through their advertising platform, Tryst.link. They also educate clients through the Good Client Guide and provide resources and articles written by and for sex workers. Assembly 4 caters to all genders and demographics and raises funds to fight for sex worker rights and against exploitation in the sex industry. Learn more at assembly4.com. ASSEMBLYFOUR.com. Hello, this is Jessie Sage, and this is the final episode of Season 1 of When We're Not Hustling, sex workers talking about everything but. It's a little bittersweet for me to say that because this show has been such a joy and a pleasure to create and to produce, but we will be back on July 1st. Emily Foster, the producer, and I wanted to take a little break and revamp some of the stuff from the show and come back even stronger on July 1st when we drop the first episode of Season 2. We are going to continue to do episodes on Mondays, standard episodes on Mondays, and the after parties on Wednesdays. And so it's going to take the same form, and we're looking forward to that. We already have, I think, 10 guests lined up. So we have a lot of people ready to go for Season 2. So we're really excited about that. I very much want to give a shout out, thank you to all of the people who've listened to the podcast. I know this is a baby podcast and we're just trying to watch it grow, but we've gotten a lot of love and support, and I'm really, really thankful for that. We're also very thankful for Tryst for supporting the show during Season 1, and they will also be a sponsor for Season 2, and they have just been amazing. So thank you, Tryst. We appreciate you. We will be looking for new sponsors, either individuals or businesses that would be good for our brand. So if you are one of those things, please feel free to reach out at nothustlingpod@proton.me. Also, I want to remind you that we are on socials. We are on Twitter and Instagram as Not Hustling Pod, and we're on Facebook as When We're Not Hustling. And I think that in this break, we might establish a couple of more socials, but we also have right now Patreon. So if you want to just support us over on Patreon, you can do that. It's patreon.com/sapiotextual, which is my Twitter handle. So for the last episode, what we wanted to do is we wanted to create a roundtable. Emily and I decided that for the first 3 seasons, we were going to have a theme for our roundtables: body, mind, and spirit. And the first one that we're doing is spirit. So what we've done is we've brought together a handful of guests from Season 1, and we've asked them about what spirit or soul means to them, or however they want to think about it, and what they do to feed that part of themselves that is not just our personas, and also what we do when it's hard to do that, when it's hard to feed our souls or our spirits or whatever it is that we consider to be essentially us. So we have 5 guests on this roundtable. We have my mom is back. She was actually, her her episode was the most popular episode. So we brought her back. She was very nervous. She was like, I'm not a sex worker, so I don't know what to say, but she was great. We also have Melissa Milk as a guest. Melissa Milk is the Shibari rigger that we had and kink practitioner that was on the Shibari episode and has also been a guest or actually like a co-host for many of the after parties. We have Trip Richards on, who was we thought we couldn't do this without Trip Richards because they set the tone for the beginning of the season by questioning the premise of the show and whether we can talk about ourselves outside of our work. We have Mary Muse, who is was on the piano episode or the music episode, I should say, and played piano for us, which was amazing. And the last guest we have on the after party is Pucks Aplenty. And Pucks Aplenty, I'm sure you remember from the Fat Liberation episode. Emily, the producer of the show, and I hosted it. And so we are there as well. And this is a longer episode. So I think it's close to 2 hours. So if you want to listen to it in chunks, feel free to do that. It is worthwhile to listen to the whole thing because it was a conversation that really fed my spirit, which may sound like a woo way to say that, but it did. So I'm grateful to all of the guests that we had this season. And I'm grateful that 5 of them agreed to come back on the show and have a really enriching and enlivening conversation about what feeds them and what keeps them going. So I hope you enjoy the episode. It's longer, so if it takes you a couple times, I don't mind. But thank you for joining us throughout the season and throughout this episode. And we love your comments and feedback. So please feel free to reach out either at the email nothustlingpod@proton.me or on socials. You can obviously rate us and review us on Spotify and Apple Pods. And we appreciate you being here. So thank you so much. We will miss putting out this show during June, but we will have so much new content for you in July.
Hi, welcome everyone. This is a really exciting episode of When We're Not Hustling. This is a roundtable, and we have so many fun guests here today. And we're just going to go around and have everyone introduce themselves. And then we're going to get into a great conversation about spirit, what that means, what feeds it for us, and what helps us get back to it. Let's start with probably our most famous guest to date, Jessie's mom.
You are, Mom. Your episode is the most listened to. So we will start with you.
Oh, well, thank you. So I am Jessie's mom, and I was honored enough. Jessie was brave enough to be given an assignment about sex workers and how their parents took it. As many of you may know or not know, it caused a division between Jessie and I that lasted years, and very, very painful for both of us. And I have since, and so when she gave me this opportunity to talk to her, I jumped at it, not knowing if it would be any good, if anybody would want to hear it. But I wanted to talk to her sincerely and honestly, and do whatever we could to make amends, to get our original relationship back. So that's how I'm even here. I don't have any experience like you guys have. Like I said, I'm a social worker, so I have a lot of experience with heavy duty emotional lifting, and and I'm still not a sex worker.
I've tried.
as much as Jessie tried, and as simple as it sounds, and it wouldn't be bad to make a few bucks, but not my elk. But that is why I'm here, and I've since listened to the podcast where she has had all her guests on and was just allowed to see a whole picture. And I think it's an important concept. When we're not hustling, we put sex workers in this box and forget to realize that they're entire human beings with lives and the whole thing. And I was really happy to learn that and to hear that.
Thank you, Mom. I appreciate you being here and sharing that again. Trip, how about you?
Hello. I am Trip Richards, aka Triple X Trans Man, all over the internet. I am currently in my 11th year of doing sex work. I have done a little bit of everything, in person, online, all of the above. Currently focused pretty much exclusively on content creation, so fan sites, clip studios, stuff like that. And I think that I was the first episode that came out of When We're Not Hustling, which became a wonderful meta conversation with you, Jessie. I appreciated you just letting me kind of free association there my way through that episode.
It was perfect.
So yeah, we wrestled with that premise. We wrestled with the fairness of even like asking that premise, and do sex workers or anyone in any profession need to kind of like justify ourselves through having other things going on in our lives? A fair question. I am still wrestling with it myself, but it was nice to have that opportunity. And I also used that platform there that you gave me to do a little bit of external processing of my own grief that I had experienced last year. And to have that opportunity to kind of figure out what was sex work letting me do, including letting me fall apart, letting me be a mess, letting me be a messy human being. I am doing a lot better in those regards currently, and sex work continues to allow me to have that space to not do sex work all the time. So that's kind of where I'm coming from now, and excited to hear what y'all are saying.
Yeah, I love that. For the people who missed episode 1, when Emily and I, the producer Emily and I, came up with this concept together of the show, and I did it out of this being my 4th sex work related podcast and feeling like I've been having the sex work conversations for a long time, and I wanted to have some other conversations. And we kind of shaped the show, Emily and I, the idea of it, and I put it out into the internet on Twitter. And Trip, who I've had on my other shows before, said, I don't know about the premise of this show. And I really appreciated that. I appreciate pushback because I think that it's really helpful in helping us define better ways of talking about things. But like you said, he was like, I don't even know how I would talk about myself outside of the work that I've done and how it shaped me. And I could say the same thing. And so I think from the very beginning, from the very first show, I feel like Trip kind of helped Emily and I actually to think through this show and to think about what does our work mean to us, and how has it shaped us, and who have we become out of this? And so I think I very much appreciate you questioning me, and I very much appreciate you coming on and free associating this with me, because I feel like it's a better show because of those conversations. So, Pucks.
Hi, I am Mixed Pucks Plenty. My pronouns are they, them, yes, queen. I am a burlesque performer and producer based in Seattle. And I am a pro-dom, and I run a lifestyle femdom group in Seattle called Diadem Events. And I have been involved in the sex positive community in various different ways for almost 15 years. I got my start at the Center for Sex Positive Culture in Seattle, and my mentor was the late and great Elena Gabosh. And so a lot of my sex work stems around working with mostly AFAB clients. I don't take cis-het male clients at all. I work mostly with AFAB clients who really want to explore BDSM and kink, and have a lot of trauma around being with cis-het men. So it's been really beautiful and therapeutic work, and it's cup filling and soul filling. So
I love that, because we spend so much time thinking about the sex industry, or not we as in the 6 of us or 7 of us, but like as being something for men or for cis-het men. And the idea that you've built a whole entire career for not them is really amazing to me.
Yeah, my whole career is centered around not centering cis-het men in every conceivable possible way. Yeah.
Yeah. And can you remind everybody what episode you were on?
Oh, I was on the episode we were talking about fat liberation. And yeah, so that's, which is also like where my spirit and soul are at right now, is creating more opportunities and platforms for marginalized voices, but specifically fat folks. Fatties need love too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Melissa Milk.
I am Melissa Milk. I am a professional kink practitioner in the Pittsburgh and national area. I teach various kinks. My specialty is shibari and rope bondage. Tops, switch, bottoms, however you can identify. Rope is for everybody. I also work with a local events and education organization called Arrow Events, where we focused on any subtext marginalized community, and we make welcoming and inclusive and educational spaces that are focused on them and creating safe space for them. I was on episode 6, part 2, rope bondage and shibari, because Jessie was doing an article, and I keep
getting assigned these articles, and they keep bringing things into my life.
I'm loving it.
People tell me what to write, and then I'm like, I got to find people who will talk to me about this. And then I ended up with my mom and Milk, which is amazing. But yeah.
So I got to be interviewed for the rope bondage article for the Pittsburgh City paper, and we connected, and Jessie wanted an experience. So I got to cater an experience to their tastes and needs, and then got invited back for the after party, which is really exciting.
Yeah, you've been on a lot of our after parties, which has been very fun. Yes, and I see the audience isn't going to be able to see this, but behind you, you have your hard points and your rope stuff.
This is one of the mirrors in my studio, so you can see the rest.
Oh, it is a mirror. I didn't realize. Yeah, that's cool.
I have 3 chihuahuas, so I'm in the quietest room in the house with the But yes, I am in my studio. I actually just started booking clients for June and July.
Nice.
And have quite a few. And a couple of them came to me through this avenue. So I'm really excited. A good thing to note about me is I've been with my community for years. I started at a very young age. I've probably been out in the kink community for 20 years now, just shy of 20 years. But I've always been very much a volunteer, very focused on what can I do at the lowest price to make it accessible? And just now I've been doing sex work, and I'm
you put your time in. Now you need to get paid.
Yeah. Now I'm working on and learning about really getting paid well by a certain demographic of people so that I can continue to support myself and my community.
Yeah. I love that.
Nice.
All right. Mary Muse.
Hi, I'm Mary Muse. I was on episode 5, Music, Pleasure, and Prayer. I'm definitely the rookie of the group here because I've only been in sex work for 5 years. It took me a very long time to kind of deconstruct my shame around sex enough to be able to start working as a sex worker. I had wanted to do it for a long time, but I didn't start till my late 20s. So I'm happy to be here, though. I am mostly an online sex worker. I'm also a musician, and Venusian Witch is how I title myself. I do a lot of tarot readings and stuff like that. I focus a lot on creativity, sensuality, and spirituality in my business and in my lifestyle too. And it's interesting. We've talked about, Trip, you talked about how can we really do this show about sex workers, but not sex work? And I'm kind of in this space of my life where I'm figuring out how to mesh those two sides of myself together within my sex work business. So that's my life right now. And it's weird. It is a weird space to be in. And it's not easy to figure out how to navigate that. So it's been cool to listen to this show and see how everybody else has these different sides of themselves. But anyway, you can, if you're looking for me online, you can find me playing piano live, usually on TikTok, sometimes on Twitch. I write erotica for my OnlyFans. I make a mix of softcore and hardcore content. I'm mostly a solo performer, though sometimes my partner comes to join me. And yeah, I do a lot of tarot readings for clients on my OnlyFans. So I actually do work mostly with cis men. would love to change that in the future, but I'm doing a lot of deconstructing toxic masculinity with a lot of cis men. So it's been interesting. It's been a learning process, but I know that it's important work. So I am happy to be able to serve the people that are open to change and becoming better, both for themselves and for the people around them. So yeah, that's me.
Definitely. Hey, I want to say too, I cheered Puck's creating spaces that were not for cis men, because I am part of marginalized societies that have not had spaces for them. But I do want to be clear, I love cis men. I'm married to a cis man. They're great people. They just have had power for a long time, and that by its own nature, results in a lot of toxicity, and you're doing good work. That's our group. We have an incredible.
Are you going to introduce yourself,
here.
Emily? We should.
Sorry, I'm Emily. I'm the producer of the show. I'm not a sex worker, but definitely in similar lines of work. Usually, not getting paid for them. I'm a huge caregiver and a person who's often called when things go sideways. I'm a guy who shows up and helps with that stuff. So it sounds like that's what a lot of you guys end up actually doing for people. It's just helping them figure out how to get things good while you're both sideways, which is really fun.
Emily's a poet, if you didn't notice.
Jessie, I suppose you should introduce yourself, but you're literally why we're all here.
I'm Jessie Sage. I have been in the industry for 10 years in different capacities. Mostly now I'm an escort. I run this show. This is, like I said, my 4th show. I did Peep Show for a long time with my partner, and then had a tiny run of a book club that was way too hard to manage, a sex work book club. And I'm also the writer. I write a sex column for the City paper, which is how I met Milk. I also, last week, Mary was featured in the City paper in my column. So I write about what's going on in sexuality. Next week, I have a story coming out about a bunch of pup players in Pittsburgh. So that should be fun. And
I'm sorry, honey. What kind of players?
Puppies.
Pets.
I have puppies. Puppies.
Not those kind of puppies.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
People who find enjoyment and relaxation in just the
pretending to be going to romps, wrestling, playing with each other. So this is something I've never participated in, but I was assigned this article, so I learned about this too. So, so I write a sex column and I host this show now. And I have also been a longtime caregiver, which I'm an oldest child and I have 3 children, and sex work feels very connected to all of that for me. So anyways, that's me. And I'm glad everybody's listening to the show. And I'm going to let Emily move on to the point of our episode.
All right. So today we're going to just talk about spirit. And I thought that we would start the conversation off with letting everyone define that for themselves. I keep using the word spirit just because it's a very neutral one, but higher power, soul, that I know there's some fun science 0.03 ounces, that extra part of yourself. And I think we'll just stay in that same order if that works. Jessie's mom, what is spirit for you?
Oh, do we have to start with me?
No, we don't have to. We could go in a different order. What about starting with Pucks?
Let's start with Pucks. I take a while to form my thoughts. I really do. I'm not a public person that just can fire stuff off.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Pucks, are you comfortable starting for us?
Yeah, I can totally do that. I feel like my spirit drives a lot of what I do. And it took a long time to kind of get to that point where I am intuitively led through life. I feel like I have definitely allowed my intuition to be stifled, which doesn't allow me to show up as my best self. So I kind of think of my spirit, my soul as like the emotional drivers of who I am. It's how, it's my best self. It's the way that I want to show up in the world. My best self is not necessarily my nicest self, is not necessarily my kindest self. It is the most authentic, distilled version of me. That is how I define that.
I like that distinction, actually, of it not being like necessarily the ideal, but the one that's like most closely connected to you.
Yeah. I got excited. That little fire in my chest was like,
Sorry. Yeah.
Mary, this is actually most probably connected to your episode. What do you think of when you think of spirit?
So, since I have a little bit of a background in Buddhism, I think of spirit as consciousness, just in general. I think I think our essence is our spirit, and it's just like the energy that inhabits our body and leaves whenever we pass this world. I think you can also view that like equally through a spiritual and a scientific lens, because we know that like it's tangible when someone dies, like their spirit is no longer in their body, right? Like that person is no longer there to commune with you. And so, I think it's like the energy that inhabits us. But I like the idea of like, Fox, what you said, it makes me think of like higher self. Like, I think when people think of the concept of higher self, they think it's like the righteous, like the perfect, the good version of you. But I agree with you in that it's not always like good, but it's like maybe the most ethical or like the most aligned version of yourself, maybe like that aligns with like your heart and soul and all that. So I like the way that you said that.
I like the notion of alignment.
The truest.
Yeah. Milk, what do you think?
My autism leads to me being pretty pragmatic and or conflicted when it comes to the thought of spirit. There is a huge thread within my train of thought that thinks what we collectively think of as spirit as ego. Humans have ego and want purpose. So we define spirit in ways that can be anywhere from like beneficial to toxic. So like that, I'm inclined to be like, this is just ego, but I am a really intuitive person. I do magic and tarot and it works. I predicted my brother's relationship and the birth of his first child, like very accurately. So like
through tarot?
Through, I just see things as signs. And then I'm like, it pings me and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do some research about that. And then, so for the birth, I got, on the morning that I predicted his child's birth, I cracked 2 double yolked eggs.
Oh,
and then I saw 3 rare birds on the side of the road in this city in a bush where they shouldn't have been. And they had been trying for years to get pregnant. So I called him and I was like, I know this is going to sound really weird, but could you take a pregnancy test? And it was positive.
Oh my gosh.
So cool.
Nice.
So I'm like, these things lead me to believe there's something else. So I'm more likely to be like, if I really have to pick something out for myself, it is spirit is a collective thing, and we are the representation of spirit experiencing consciousness.
Nice.
A definition.
And so for us, the connection is our humanity. And the way we relate to one another is how we experience the most sensation of spirit within ourselves, because like we are just spirit sort of passively experiencing physicality.
Right.
For someone who started with, I don't know if I really know much about this. Right? Came up with a very well thought out definition.
It's just ego, but also.
But there is always a part of me that is cynical and is just like, it's just ego.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I deal with that too. I was an atheist for a long time, and now I'm a witch, and I believe in a lot of different things that I never would have believed in like 10 years ago. So I relate.
It's funny. I'm like doing some stuff with my partner, and like relational stuff. And the other day I was saying something to them about like, well, what about like deep breathing? And they were like, they're very like skeptical about everything. And they were like, I hate that, except it works. They're like, I hate that it works and I don't want to, but okay.
It's like taking the mental health walks outside. You know it works, but you don't want to do it.
I get that completely.
All right, Mom, do you want to come in now? Have you had some time to ruminate and then we'll move to Trip?
Yeah. So when the question came up, I'm afraid spirit is something that doesn't resonate with me a lot. I don't think about it a lot. I think soul is maybe a better word, but for me, it is the self inside that we all possess. I think we all have that within us, but it is extraordinarily difficult to get to with our day-to-day lives. I think it takes a lot of I'll speak for myself. It takes a lot of discipline for me to slow down enough to get to some clarity. To some clarity, the mind goes, oh, and this is happening, that is happening. Absolutely no perspective, right? We're all just wrapped up in our little world where we think everything is happening. And so it takes usually some type of crisis or some types of ongoing stress or some types of things where I'm thinking, how am I going to get myself out of this to where I will finally back off enough to say, thank you for stopping by, ego, but I don't need you right now. So yeah, very ego driven. I'm very ego driven, where I think that if I just think long enough, I will have the answers. So I don't believe it. It isn't spirit for me. It is quietness, and it's quietness where I can get down to who I really am. I can't say I can do it often or very well, but once I do, I start by observing myself. Oh, look at you. You're worried about this and you're worried about that. And you're thinking this. And I try to take the judgment. You're human. Okay, you're doing all that nonsense. It's what humans do. Can you stop for just a second and allow your being? I kind of think of it more as a being. A spirit to me is something outside, the holy or spirits that, walk the earth. I look inward and I get an enormous sense of peace when I realize, like, we are humans we are souls, we are energy experiencing a very physical world. And so that's where I have to go for me. That's where I have to go for me. And if I concentrate on that, if I say, by ego, I understand why you're having this fantasy where you're conquering the world, or I understand, whatever nonsense we're bringing up in our head, it's not useful, but you're not bad for thinking that. Just allow yourself to back off. And many times what's happened is I get this tremendous sense of gratitude of saying yes to everything that's going on. I don't think that you don't want to go on, but yes, this is what's happening, accepting the reality of what it is, and somehow feeling I'm going to be able to handle this. And even if I can't handle this, that's okay. That's part of it too, so just let go of the control, let go of what I think that I can accomplish by my brain, right? By my intellect,
Right.
So it's very deep. It's very quiet. I can't say I get to it as often as I like, because like PJ, I know it works, but I don't want to do it. I struggle with that. Right? I struggle with that. So I resonate more with the energy within that I know that we all have. It's not about intelligence. It's not about station in life. We all possess it if we can just quiet down and quit judging ourselves for not having it readily available all the time. And what that does is allow, everybody else has the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So they may be manifesting all this stuff, and acting a fool or carrying on, but they have that essence too.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I'll get to you in a second, Trip, but I think one of the things that's coming up in everything that I've heard so far is like, in Mary's words, this notion of like alignment, or like in Puck's, what is most true to us. And I think, Mom, that you brought up like an interesting point, which is that like this notion of spirit, particularly like in a Christian, Judeo-Christian context, where we think of it as something like we have this body and our spirit is something else that's like inside of our body, or something that if we can stop thinking about things like that and instead think about like what is it that we are, that's not external to us, or we're not borrowing for some period of time or something like that, that there's something about our center. Like a lot of you are bringing up this idea of like who we are at base. So Trip, what do you think?
Oh no, I'm loving hearing all of your takes on this. That's the nice benefit of going last on a question. Just like, I'm going to take a little sprinkle of you and a little sprinkle of you. I actually really love that idea of like connecting with intentionality, which has been a huge piece of my work, which doesn't really answer the question, but I was just kind of like, oh yeah, that is so much of like my process. Disclaimer here, when I got the email with the topics, I was like, oh crap, this is like the thing I am the least qualified to speak on. I am an atheist. I'm a total heathen. I'm autistic. Like, this is not my wheelhouse. But then I sat with things, as Jessie's mom would recommend me to do. And I was like, oh, I have an answer for this. For me, spirit is simply the difference between like going through the motions. It's like being alive in a clinical sense versus aliveness. And for me, those are vastly different energies. They are the difference between counting time versus experiencing it. So for me, spirit is simply living in like a deep kind of, capital letters, living experience. And I am very aware of the times in my life where I have been alive, because I have 100% success rate at that so far. But man, I was not living. I was not alive in any meaningful sense.
No, absolutely.
So that's where for me the distinction is, and the way that I at least can, for myself, make sense of the terminology around spirit as I am myself. I am experiencing things. I am connected. That idea of like connection to humanity is huge for me. Love, which I use as a very broad term, but love, care, connection, for me, that is life. And without it, I'm just a body then.
Yeah, that moves through space.
Yeah. Moves through space, making up all kinds of stories that have nothing to do with reality.
Right? We're really good
Monkeys
at that.
singing songs, man.
Monkeys singing songs, right.
Emily, what do you think? Have you given much thought to this?
Yes, throughout my entire life I have. I'm blessed to be raised in a really unconventional way with a lot of unconventional people. So this is a question that comes up a lot. I also have many atheistic and I don't want to say autistic tendencies, but a tendency to take things quite literally and really, really drill down on things. Be like, yeah, but that's kind of bullshit, isn't it? But I'll tell you, despite all of my attempts to disprove to myself that there was something more than this, there's two things that stand out for me. First thing is I've gotten to see a lot of newborns, and newborns do not have an ego. They have not developed one, but they are themselves. You have been yourself from the minute you took a breath, and probably before, but that's where I've witnessed it from. And it's mind blowing. It's shocking almost. So there's that. The other thing is the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I've done a lot of drugs. And at one point I was switching up completely.
Highly recommend.
Not with the newborns, just so we're clear. Those times are separate.
Okay. Make sure. Never mind then. Never mind, right?
So one time when there was no newborns around at all, no babies at all, I was on a lot of DMT, and every sense that I had was taken by this drug. I was seeing things and hearing things. I was even feeling a sense of touch. My thoughts were even overtaken by it as their own self. They were doing these fun little things, and I'm a musician, so it was all very delightful and had this great sense to it. But I was watching it. There was an I with a capital I there that was like, oh, how cute. Look what my brain made. Look what my brain made when it got this mixed in with it. And, there's, I can understand how ego and that sort of observer self could be similar, but I've watched my ego do shit too. So, I straight up watched that. So that experience particularly, but there's been some other ones. I took cocaine and acid once. I don't recommend it, but what a delightful experience in the observation of ego. There's just something in those experiences where everything has been stripped away. In the newborn, there's just nothing there to have had yet. And in the sense of doing drugs for me, there, everything was very bare, and yet there was still this very, very clear me. There was a me. There was a me that was laughing at the whole thing. That's spirit for me. I don't know what that is, but that.
That's so interesting.
I think that was a being observing yourself, Emily.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Your being was observing yourself. And when we can get to that, I think it's very powerful. Very powerful, as long as we don't get critical, because I've observed myself and I've thought, oh, God, whatever negative self-talk, you're silly, you're this, you're that. When I got to where, just observe it and don't judge it, and it will dissipate. The shame, the fantasy, whatever it is that's going on, does dissipate.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what you're saying about like newborns, because I've birthed 3 children and all of them came out, like even the pregnancies and the deliveries match up with their personalities as they are now. And that's the weirdest thing. Like, and some of it is like a bit anachronistic because you look back at like, okay, now you're 16 or 18 or 20, and I can see exactly how you were like as a baby, who you are now. But it's also very real. Like they're very, and I think a lot of times when people have like, for example, I remember being a young person and having one child who was 2 and who,
perfect, like Jessie. I'll have 10 Jessies. Oy vey, that did not happen.
And thinking like and hearing other parents say like, I don't know how you guys go to restaurants. Like, it's so difficult. And I'd be like, why don't you just tell them to sit down? I don't know what's wrong with you. And then I had more children and I realized that that's stupid. You can't just tell somebody to sit down. Like you think you have more power than you do, but like people are like just the people that they are.
Yeah.
I wanted to jump in to speak to what you shared about DMT, Emily. I haven't done it myself, but I was the babysitter for my partner while he did it. That's always an interesting experience because I'm just sitting there twiddling my thumbs, and he's done. He's like, I just saw God, and I'm like, oh my God, okay. But he's also an atheist, and that is like one of the experiences that he goes back to a lot. And he's conflicted about it, and I am, as I've said, I'm a pretty spiritual person. That's pretty new in my life. In the last 5 years, I've become this spiritual person, but I haven't set my goals on like making him believe, because I'm just not that kind of person. Right. You can believe whatever you want. I don't care. But yeah, there's been a couple different things that have happened over the years where he's come to me and said like, you might be onto something. But I think really what it comes down to is just being open to what I do for myself, at least, since I spent a majority of my life as an atheist, like very, very staunch atheist.
Yeah.
And now I'm very spiritual and doing a lot of things that I would have scoffed at before. I allow myself to just be open to new experiences and allowing multiple answers to exist at the same time, because I don't think that there is one answer to any of these questions that we're going to be covering today. So I just thought I'd jump in and say that.
No, I love that. Yeah. No, I was raised a Ben Buddhist, so right from the beginning, I was informed that thought it was separate from me, ego was separate from me, like everything is separate from me. There's just a me, and it's my job to get to a calm place and deal with the suffering of life. And I don't necessarily follow that so much anymore, but it's pretty ingrained in there. It's pretty in there, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, but that fits with atheism. And honestly, everything that everyone said today and continues to say, I'm not convinced, doesn't fit within this perfect little closed system we're living in. And I'm not, that doesn't take away from the magic for me. Like, like you said, magic works. It works. Spells work. They just work. And that can still fit in this. It doesn't have to be more than that. There's really cool stuff that works, and it's amazing. Also, I'm breathing air, and that's like amazing.
Atoms exist. That's so cool. Like, I don't know. That's how I think of it.
I think that when we hit up against like rupture, that's when we tend to like take a step back and think about like, how come things aren't working? And often I think like it's amazing how much they do, though. Like that we go through, like, I mean, I'm clearly like a mom because I keep like reaching out for these like things that have to do with children. But like when people are pregnant and something goes wrong, I'm like, oh, that's terrible. And then I also think like, how amazing is it that it goes right most of the time? That's so wild. But yeah, I think that's all of those. I want to hold all of those together, all of your definitions and reflections, because I think those are really lovely while we move on to the next thing. So Emily, why don't you cue up the next question?
I think the next thing we just want to move into is like, okay, so we've defined like what that is for you. In the best cases, what do you do to feed that? What's that like? How do you connect to that place of you-ness that you've just defined? What is it that you do in the physical world to get you into the place of feeling that? Tux, you want to start off again? I really love you just leading the way.
It's something that I think about a lot. I have been suffering from burnout like for the past year. So I feel the cup is bone dry most of the time. And I have been a person that's always whatever residue is in the cup, I'm going to figure out a way to reconstitute it, splash something in there real quick.
Do some stones.
And slide it onto something real quick, like it's like some butter or something like that. Like I am not the best person in terms of taking care of and feeding my spirit. My cup is always almost always bone dry. And I think it actually took being around someone fairly recently that is very in tune with their spirit and and how they're interacting with it and like how they're feeding it. That like is allowing me to actually be like, sit back and think about like, how do I want to feed my spirit? So lately that's been a lot of saying no with my whole ass chest. And right, the whole ass chest. Being very clear with my boundaries as opposed to being really waffly and kind of noodly about my boundaries. My boundaries have always been like wet pasta, like sure. Honestly, what really feeds me is like I'm a hedonist by nature, and being able to be like being able to be in that headspace and be like as close to that as I can be is probably the thing that feeds me the most. And it's not just like fucking, even though it is a lot of fucking, which is wonderful.
Ain't nothing
but
wrong
also,
with fucking.
right?
Yeah.
But it's also like the pleasure of like taking pleasure in the things that I actually that I enjoy and rediscovering the things that I enjoy, because work has been the thing. Work is, I put so much of my spirit, so much of me into my work that I lost track of who me was for a while. And that's where the burnout has come into play. But yeah, it's been really fascinating to, get pretty high on mushrooms and be in space with someone who's so in touch with their spirit and what they need, and being able to communicate without words for several fucking hours, and kind of find that place. I've been a intentional psychedelic like microdoser since the start of the pandemic. Every Wednesday, got my little appointment with myself. And it's become even more a part of like my my spiritual practice, right? And like and like dealing with those shadowy parts of ourselves that we are like, you see someone talking and you're like, why are they breathing? Like, what is happening? Why is everything about them annoying me? And realizing that like it's a reflection of some shit inside yourself that you haven't dealt with, right? So and so that's what I meant when it's like, be like, my spirit isn't necessarily the kindest or nicest parts of me. It is just me.
What have you done to like, I want to go back to what you were saying about boundaries. What do you feel like you've done to like firm up those wet noodles?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Isn't that cute?
Yeah. I'm going to go with it.
Like I have been calling out, I'm getting fucked a lot recently. Like legit, just like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I'm busy having sex. I'm planning on having sex that day. Yeah.
Valid.
Yeah, like, and it kind of stops people in their tracks, and they're just like, wait, what? Because I like the humor of it, but it's also very true. The other thing I've been doing is like, I went from working a 60-hour work week to 5 hours.
Wow.
Nice.
I had to go cold turkey because working is my drug of choice.
I relate to that.
Feel that. Yeah.
Bunch of workaholics.
And so I had to go cold turkey. And last week was a 60-hour week, like for the first time in like 4 months. And this newest partner in my life, who's really been like kind of opening my eyes to my workaholic ways, they just looked at me from across the table and they're like, "You're back on that sauce again, aren't you?" And I'm like, let me set my boundaries up. Let me figure this out again. But yeah, a lot of that really is like having to say out loud the quiet part for people, where I'm like, I know that you're used to me being available all the time. I have made myself so available. I have to be available for me, and I have not been able to be available for me. And if you want me to be able to continue to show up in these big ways that I have to cocoon a little bit. I have to figure out how to like refill this cup. And like, because could you imagine if I was actually working from a full cup instead of this like half empty cup that I built my whole empire off of the past 7 years? I'd be fucking dangerous.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Milk, what about you?
Our answers are really, really similar because as a person who is also like a family caregiver, has been, doing all these things in my community for a really long time. I'd love to have a well-scripted answer about how like doing things for my community makes me feel so connected. The burnout is deep and it is strong and it's so halting for someone who's late diagnosed neurodivergent. So my big thing at this point is really, I supported my partner while they started some businesses a few years ago, and it really took almost a year of their business being like very successful and then being like, quit your job, quit your job, quit your job. Because I had a day job, like a high earning, high stress day job on top of everything else that I was doing. So the first real lean into connecting with myself more, and this was just the tip of the iceberg because this was before I even got diagnosed and started learning things about myself, was jumping off the corporate ladder and being like, I wonder if people really survive when they're not doing this, and then learning you can survive and thrive. Working for yourself, having your own businesses. And more recently, the big thing has been my connection to spirit for myself is trusting my intuition and really listening to everyone around me who is constantly saying, what you produce, the things that you do, what you're good at has like a high value. Actually expect what you deserve from the world, as far as like what you should get paid, the opportunities that people should afford you. You walk into the room and you constantly deliver. So like walk into the right rooms. Talk to the right people. Take the correct opportunities. Be selfish in that you should expect that if you're going to walk into a room and deliver, that person's also going to lift you up or give you a good opportunity to find a cycle of getting something out of it. And then also just being very intuitive with that, like listening to my gut and talking to the people around me to reinforce what it says. And
I think it's really hard. I don't want to interrupt you, but I've had to learn this too, that like people won't give you what you don't ask for, but they surprisingly do give you what you do ask for.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Not everybody is.
When they're capable
people
of
who are not
when
like
they can
will take what you're offering no matter what it is. Right. Like they'll be like, oh yeah, no, if you're out here being like, I have all these things to offer, the wrong person is going to find an opportunity right away and take it. So having boundaries and removing opportunities from people who don't deserve my time and my energy. But also a little bit of balance through drawing better boundaries for myself, going after the things that I want and I need. I have found people who you do get a reciprocal nature from your relationship. You're feeding them, they're feeding you, you're lifting each other up. So with the right people and through standing up for myself, the right people have come along to be like, now I feel even more connected to our humanity because we're like collectively surviving and finding ways to thrive.
Thank you for listening to When We're Not Hustling. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Doing so will help other people find us. And if you're a sex worker who wants to come on the show and talk about your life outside of work, we would love to have you. Please send an email with more information to nothustlingpod@proton.me.
Right.
Yeah.
Mom, what about you?
That.
How do I connect?
Yeah.
Was that the
How do you connect to and feed? How do you get to that place of
that
feeling
quiet place that you're talking about?
That quiet place. I have the advantage over all of you guys in that I'm so much older, right? And you guys are way ahead of me than I was at your age. My life lessons have taken a very, very long time to learn. So how I feed myself quite honestly is in service to others. Now that let me preface that by saying it's not service to others who will just take and take and take, right? I've learned boundaries because not everyone deserves our trust, our time, our energy. And I've learned to distinguish that. I pretty well. I get messed up sometimes, but so it's not a punitive thing like they don't deserve me. It's they're not at a space that they have anything to offer, right? So I can't pour all this in and expect a goat to neigh like a horse. And when I can let go of that judgment and just say they're doing what they can, but it's not serving me, then you can gracefully and kindly step away. Step away from it. I also think that we have to allow people to grow and understand, right? So I've pointed out, Jessie, to some of your sisters, listen, this is reciprocal. I know I'm your mom, but you're adults, and I can't give and give and give because you're not children forever, right? So how do I feed that? I feed that by my motivations. I need to look at my motivations. What is it that I am hoping to get? It's just, I'll give you an example. I have a 98-year-old person that I sit with, that I'm a guardian of. Yesterday, and I'm sure you guys all know this better than I do, people don't always need us to perform something for them or to provide something for them or to bring something to them. I sat with this woman for an hour and a half. She can't talk, she can't communicate, but she loves me whenever she sees me. And you know what she needed? She needed human touch. She needed me to hold her hand and just let her feel that I was happy to be there with her. That I love her on a very spiritual level. That fed me. Now, does that feed me when I visit people that aren't like that? No. So I don't do that every time. So how do I feed myself? I give of myself when because it gets me out of my head, because I can get very self-absorbed, and it's not always about us, right? It really isn't always about us. But the boundaries come into play that are very important, in my opinion, is kind of, is there anything in this for you? And if it's just take and take and take, then they can find somebody else to take from, right? They can find somebody else to take from. So that's how I feed it. It's on a day-to-day kind of interaction by interaction basis. When I stay in touch to what my motivations are. Do I need something from this person? No, I really don't. I really don't need anything from them. But if I do need if I need an answer, if I need an action, I'm going to pay you this money and might need my car or whatever. I have very clear boundaries and very clear expectations, and I think we're entitled to those. But if we're talking about the deeper spiritual things, I question myself. What is ego driven? What am I doing that's just because I feel entitled to it because they owe me that? If you owe me that, I expect it. But I say I'm a little bit older. It is a benefit because I just don't take things as personally anymore. I don't take it personally anymore. And I don't offer anything that I don't feel I can give.
Nice.
I I just don't feel like I can give them. I love animals. I connect with animals. That's my spiritual bond. If I'm in an ornery mood, a short-tempered mood, something, I don't do that to them. I don't have to share that with them, you know. So you have to question, what do you have to offer? What do you have to offer? And if you have nothing to offer, like our friend is saying, you know, that she's kind of whiffing up the vapors at the bottom of her resource cap, that's when I stop. That's really do stop. And like Rosie, your sister, people know that, my friends know that I can go on a blackout. I have 1 or 2 days, and you've experienced it, Jessie. I blacked out on you for several weeks. I just needed my time. Nothing personal against anybody. I just needed my time, and I took it.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
it helps me crawl back. All of a sudden, I feel this energy of, oh, what is going on with, you know, I just, I get re-energized. If that made any sense at all, friends, I'm sorry.
It does.
Very much.
Yeah. Trip, what about you?
I was loving at the very beginning, Pucks, what you were saying about your Wednesday, is it mushroom or other psychedelic day?
Mushroom Wednesday.
Yeah, because I have a Wednesday get fucked so hard and then take a walk with my partner, and it is in our calendar, and I love it. Little midweek treat. So when you said that, I was like, yes, Wednesday true. So I'm actually, this is probably the first time I've talked about this publicly. I am actually winding down my career. I am at the end of sex work.
Oh my gosh.
Many complicated reasons. Jessie, get me on another show and we'll talk about it. This is not the space for it. But
every time I talk to you, there's a big thing.
Get into season 2 to find out what's going on.
But not to bring that as the focus here. I am dealing with deep burnout, as I think we probably all are collectively, and trying to figure out like, what is my worth outside of performance? I'm kind of pulling from some of y'all's other words here. I'm like that connected. And I am also trying to do that give and take within the confines of capitalism. And I feel like that needs to be part of a discussion of like the things that are nurturing for me, that would feed my spirit, that make me feel the most alive and living, are also not necessarily things that will keep me housed and safe. And the things that are also part of being able to have that experience of aliveness. So, we end up kind of navigating these idealism, the utopia versus the pragmatic. And that's what I have been doing a tremendous amount of thinking on. I do not have conclusions here, but that thematically has been a big piece of the last, I mean, I feel like this has been years in coming, but certainly the last few months of like, okay, what could be next? What does that look like? How do I find worth outside of my performance, which has been literally my entire adult life, and could be argued even before then? And what I'm coming back to are like almost strings of adjectives of what brings me that sense of aliveness. Love is a big one, and I use that term very broadly. Caring for others, caring for myself. Pleasure, big one. Hedonism is a big one for me as well. Things like kindness, curiosity, presence. I do these kind of like brainstorming and journaling of like, what are word clusters that connect for me? And those are some of those that make me feel most myself as a human, most myself as a man, because gender is absolutely an interplay here. Sometimes they have made me feel most myself as a sex worker. But if I remove those parts of myself, the parts that have been the easy validation of fans and clients and followers validating the version of me that they know, it's like, who is the rest of the version? And I know this is kind of like what we wrestle with in this, the premise of the When We're Not Hustling, I'm kind of restating, but it's like, what would I look like? Who would I be outside of purely being Trip Richards?
Right.
And I keep finding myself drawn back to the idea of love and connection and like things that feel full. I think we're all trying to like seek that in a way.
Yeah. I like what you're saying about like the easy validation, because it seems, I think that's really important. And I don't hear a lot of sex workers talk about that, which is that like there is a way that we're having interactions with like a very small performative side of ourselves, and that can get unbalanced, if that's how we're thinking human interactions are, what they look like. Like I think about that every time I have a client say like, oh, I wish I had a partner like you. I'm like, I'm sure my partner also wishes that. Like,
they're seeing the best of you in that moment.
Right.
So I think
the me that you're getting is like 100% time and attention, because it's so it's so bounded. It's so like performative. Even if it's sincere, it's still performative, And I think that there's something really important to what you're saying of like, what if we're going to go back to the original question, where is the me in there? That can become cloudy when you're in a performative job.
Yeah, and performative job has been it's all that I know. And so even within my own interpersonal, like personal life relationships, I've had to and continue on the daily basis to figure out like, am I just providing for them? Am I doing caregiving because that's the only way that I know how to be? It is the only way that I feel worthy of their reciprocal affection. And trying to pick out like, okay, who am I off screen? Who am I outside of being at work, even when I'm not at work?
One thing that she's not on here today, but I want to bring back something that Seska talked about when she was on the show, because she talked about longevity in the industry. And she said something that I thought was really important, which is that during COVID, she went like, during lockdown, she went kind of, she didn't have a partner and she was kind of rediscovering herself, and she left in-person sex work. And one of the things that she said is that she had to get away from other people's scripts of like what things looked like, what sexuality was supposed to look like, the roles that she played in relationship to them. And that kind of like stepping away from all of that and just being on her own was really powerful. And it sounds like something that you're in a sense like craving too, not necessarily solo, but outside of the context of sex.
For me,
right.
I don't do well on my own for good reasons, bad reasons. I'm not really here to figure that out.
Yeah. But in terms of separate from like the performer, Trip Richards part. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I feel my greatest sense of self through community, through partnership, through a sense of connectedness. In fact, if I spend too much time on my own, I lose that sense of self.
Yeah. Yeah. Mary, I think you're the only one who hasn't gone yet.
Wow. What? All these answers made me really rethink my answer, but I love what everybody is saying. And I think that I would venture to say that all of us are probably very empathetic people, and we're all like caretaking everybody around us all the time. And so we can all relate to that. And I definitely relate to a lot of what was said in that when I need to feed myself, I have to work on my boundaries and make sure that I'm not pouring my cup into other people's cups before I check to see where my levels are at. And I definitely relate to going through burnout. I think I've probably been in a perpetual state of burnout for the last 10 years. So it's, it goes through peaks and valleys for sure. But yeah, I'm not sure where I want to start, because I've been through similar situations as what a lot of you described, where I had to make decisions on what really was feeding me and what was depleting me. And for me, that was leaving a comfy at the time. It was the most I'd ever been paid in like a corporate job, quote unquote. I worked in arts administration, and I was working with children that did not have access to arts programs. And it was really important work, and I felt really empowered by it. But the people in charge, they fired 3 people and gave me 1 job for all those 3 people. So it was not sustainable at all. And I definitely had a moment then when, in the back of my head, I was like, well, I've always wanted to try out sex work. So I guess like I'm at my lowest. I'm so depleted right now. Like I might as well just try this out. You know, I quit my job, got 3 different jobs and made ends meet however I could for a while. And it took a lot of time to figure out what really did feed me. And of course, as we all know, sex work can be incredibly fulfilling and incredibly depleting, depending on how you go about it. So I've definitely struggled with that. But I think a big thing that I've gone back to has been inner child work and figuring out what fed me before all of this, all of the capitalism and everything got to me, you know, like before I had to make a living and had to be working in order to survive. What was I doing to make myself happy? And what was I doing that really fed me? And for me, that is connection with nature and connection with my music. I definitely, those 2 things are probably some of the biggest actions that I take to feed myself and feed my soul. So like I'm lucky I'm with a partner that also loves nature like me. So we'll go on hikes and stuff, and I'll hug the trees and do whatever I need to do to get my hippie shit out. And it helps me, it helps me to just kind of, to just recharge a bit, because I feel like that kind of energy is something that I can pull from that is infinite, and I'm not going to deplete it. You know, I can sit and tree bathe and really get a lot of energy back from that. And playing piano, I've said this to you before, Jessie, but like piano is like my first love. So speaking on the idea of love and how it feeds us, like music and making music has been one of the easiest ways for me to help to get back to that core part of myself. It helps me to empty my brain. And when I can get into, I mean, it's not like it doesn't happen every single time, but when I can get into the flow and I can just sit at the piano and play stuff and not worry about anything else that's going on and take that time for myself, it really does help me to forget about the burnout for a moment, at least. And I think that distraction aspect, as much as, you know, it doesn't fix the whole problem, it has been helpful, because as Tripp has kind of said, like, we still got to get food on the table. It's not always feasible to take big, long breaks, but that has also been a big part of what I've had to learn is you have to rest before you just completely fall apart, because then it's much harder and you have to take much more time after you've fallen apart to get back to where you want to be, you know? So taking rest along the way is a lot more sustainable, and it's hard to do because we're all really taught to never rest and that it's irresponsible to rest. But
I'm a big advocate of the afternoon nap.
Yes.
I
Absolutely.
don't understand people who don't nap. But yeah, I do think that taking out some time of rest is really important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jessie,
what do you do? Oh, no,
Sorry.
please. Bugs,
Oh,
what?
sorry. I just had this because the C word came up, capitalism came up a couple times, and what a depleting thing to spirit. I feel like capitalism is the thing that just shits all over my spirit on a regular basis. And I'm just like, I have done nothing to you. I have fed you. If anything, right? I have fed you. I have birthed a child to go into your fucking system. Like literally sacrificed a whole human being, my own body, everything to you, and you're shitting all over my spirit. What the fuck is this? What is this? But like, you know, there's this wonderful book and Instagram page called the Nap Ministries, like take a nap. And I love the idea of like rest is radical. It's this beautiful thing. You know, I am a traumatized adult who was a traumatized teenager, who was a traumatized kid, who is the strong one. It is my job to pack mule all of this shit, and you know, and get myself out of you know, poverty. Make sure my kid has more than I did. All this shit. and I'm polyamorous, and the poly dream is always the fucking commune and all the people on the property and the whole thing.
Right, yeah.
And, and we're living off the grid and we're doing this, we're doing that. And I'm just like, and you got to rest and your productivity and all this shit, everything's so counterintuitive to the thing. And so like when people start talking about capitalism and like productivity and like, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to like make it work? I'm just like, the system, the way that it currently is that you have to have the capital in order to opt out of capitalism.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's
you
like,
have to get the stuff to be able to eschew it.
Yeah.
And
to get out of it,
the
right?
Stuff.
You got to do the thing, right?
Right.
And then another thing came up, and I wanted to share this quote, because of just like some feelings have been bubbling up for me during this whole conversation. And it's from Adrienne Marie Brown. Specifically, there is a conversation in the room that only these people at this moment can have. Find it. Thank you for having this conversation, because I'm finding it right now. Like, it is,
nice.
This conversation is a fucking moment. It's a vibe, it's a mood. And it, I know that we're talking about spirit, but it also feels like spirits are heavy. And there's transition, and there's burnout, and there's how do I care? And I just want you all to know I feel that weight, and I'm glad that we can all kind of carry that weight for each other in this conversation. So.
Yeah.
There you
Which
go.
actually is a really good transition to the next question, because when Emily and I'm just going to say this real quick. When Emily and I were talking about this yesterday and trying to figure out how we wanted to put together the questions, we were like, okay, there's an ideal of like how you fill your cup back up again, and how like you feed your spirit and what that looks like. But then what if that's not working? What kind of bridge?
Possible.
Yeah, or possible.
Like, what if that's not possible?
Yeah, because, going back, like you said, Pucks, to capitalism, like there's all these ideals, but like sometimes, like I'm going to get off this call. I am on a deadline. I have a whole bunch of stuff I need to do. I'm completely stressed out, actually, in my life. I'm very stressed right now. I'm always stressed because I am somebody who says yes to a lot of things. And so, the next thing that we wanted to go into is like, okay, if that's not possible because of capitalism or because of our caretaking responsibilities or because of whatever it is that's happening in our lives, like, how do we handle that? Yeah. Like, what do we do? Emily was talking about it yesterday when we were talking about as a bridge, like what can be a bridge toward that ideal of like filling your cup back up again? Because, I wanted to say when Mary was talking about writing, when Mary was talking about playing music, I was thinking about writing, because I was thinking about the fact that like, I write to understand myself. And a lot of times, I write, I heard this very lovely quote by kind of my hero, Krista Tippett, who I love. I love her show and her work. And one of the things that she said is I write to tell myself what I already know. And that's like very much my experience of like, I have to sit down and put it down to understand my own feelings about something. And so when Mary was talking about like, I play music, it's my first love, I was thinking about how I've always done that. I've always written to understand myself, but that's in an ideal world. Actually, today I have to sit down and write because I'm on a deadline. I'm behind. I have an editor asking me about the next 2-3 editors asking me about the next things that I don't even have time to get to until I finish the thing that I'm doing today. The writing that I'm about to do is very stressful and not going to fill my cup. Not because I don't want to do it, but because I also have to make money. And so like I have to say yes to a bunch of things because I have bills, so the same things that we could say are like, oh, this fills my cup in an ideal world. Like we don't always live in an ideal world. So like, I think maybe you're better at asking the pointed question, but this is the transition into that.
I think I'm gonna instead. I'm gonna ask the question, but I'm also gonna give my own like little metaphor of it. Like, so in an ideal world, I replenish by being alone. I need alone time. I go crazy without it. So my perfect replenishment is my room is all perfect and clean. I'm reading a new book and no one's around forever and it's just silent and pretty. Okay, I'm also raising a toddler and I have a 19-year-old in my house. Guess how possible that is? Like, it's just not possible.
Yeah.
And sometimes my cup gets, as Specs perfectly put it, bone dry, and I am losing my shit, and I am not a nice person. And instead of being able to relax and read a book, I go listen to some Ludacris real loud. Only takes a couple of songs, and I am back. I am ready. I'm ready to drive this bus. We're gonna have a good time whether we like it or not. Like, my bridge is often Luda. There's some other people, but Luda's my guarantee. Like, he will get me there. He will remind me I am a strong person and I am ready to take some shit on, and I will get back out there. And I think that's the best way I can preface this question is, like, when your ideal way of connecting with spirit isn't there, how do you shortcut that shit? What's your little bridge? What's your connection? Like, how do you get there quick? Anyone have a question that's like answer that's immediately bubbling up and want to start? We can do a free for all if you want.
I do for sure,
there,
because Emily, I use a lot of the same kind of thing whenever I am really going through it and overwhelmed with every responsibility that I'm dealing with. I use music in that way too. It's not always just playing, because I do this for a living now. I get subscribers through playing.
Right.
And so, a lot of the time when I'm playing, I'm also live streaming and getting, there's always the outliers that are just horrible comments, and like I'm dealing with that while I'm playing, so it makes the situation, it's not so meditative. So I use music in other ways too, and I've learned this from my therapist, who is luckily very sex work positive, which is great. And she's taught me to make playlists for whatever I need to process at the time. So I have a playlist for being angry. I have a playlist for being sad. Like, I have all these different playlists for different emotions. So whenever I'm feeling super overwhelmed, I will not only just listen to this is the spiritual hippy dippy in me. I will not only just listen to them, I will literally just like flap my body around in the room and just go crazy and just like somatic. I do a lot of somatic healing. So what I do is just dance and just like get the energy out of my body, because that seems to be the most helpful way for me whenever I'm feeling really disconnected to my inner self. It means usually for me that I have a lot of shit going on inside of me, and I just have to get something out. And it might not solve any situation that I'm dealing with, but at least I can move that energy through me, so then I don't take it out on my partner or the other people that I love, because that does happen. I think all of us probably deal with that. So yeah, just having a good time, putting some music on really loud and allowing whatever is going on in that music to kind of almost like makes me think of like electricity, right? So it's like moving through you energetically, so it can just kind of take it along with it. That's what I do. And that's like part of my spiritual practice, really. So it's interesting that you said that.
Nice. I love that.
I'm glad, Mary, that you mentioned the psychosomatic work stuff, because I think that's both central to our work, the profession stuff. But like for me, that is also my only way really to successfully unwind, whether it is, dancing on the patio, working out. It's like we are body centric in our work. And I think it's almost like we need to carry that into the non-work portions very intentionally, and then reclaim that movement, reclaim that like connection to body. I know as a sex worker for this long, mostly doing, I'm mostly on like a hardcore side of stuff, in-person side, for most of my career. And I fully dissociate. There are two complete personalities. There is Trip, and then there is, name redacted, real self. They never, ever meet. I have no sensation between them. I have no memory of each other. Like, they are a full dissociation. So for me to be able to exist in the same three-dimensional physical body as the person who is not Trip is essential for me, because otherwise, basically the only place that I do anything with my body is as Trip. And then I forget that there's a whole other like self.
Oh man, I relate to that so much.
Yeah. Milk, what about you?
This is something that I'm still actively working on and figuring out as I unmask. I'm early on in the process of being like, once you decide to unmask, the Band-Aid doesn't go back on. Like you have to learn how to be yourself. I did a little bit of chaos magic on the new year, which was like, I want to be able to like step into myself in a way where the opportunities that I want will arrive because I am being the most authentic version of myself. And that has come with like the universe gives you what you want one way or another. So you're going to have to deal with the fact that you're actually like an incredibly neurodivergent person. You're very autistic. And there are things that you're going to need that you don't even know that you need yet. So I'm still learning those things. Some of the things that I have figured out so far are intentionally letting my deadlines push. Because a lot of the work that I do, because I did jump off the corporate ladder, is things that I schedule for myself, personal goals that I have. And I have issues with anxiety and racing thoughts. So your thoughts start to race, you get on this, I should be doing this one thing, but I also have all these other things to do. And just very intentionally, like not being like, oh my God, I'm going to miss this deadline. Like being like, no, I need time. I'm not doing this today. I'm going to accept the fact that eventually this work will get done. And once it's done, it's not like I'll have to do it again. It's done. I'm just not going to be able to do it today. Sometimes I just have to like muscle up and find my way. Like if I'm caregiving, if I'm out for the day with my brother who's in a wheelchair and I'm overstimulated, you know, you find the things in the moment, like music or I love pain-seeking stims. So like overwhelming myself with sensation. I have jewelry pieces that I wear that are like specifically, you say you love my little necklace. She has like a pointed crown of thorns style halo. And it's very specifically like fidgeting with things like that like bring me back into myself, finding physical sensations that like place me in my body. So that I remember like, I am here. This is what I'm doing. Also just being really, the best coping mechanism that I've come up with so far is like, if I can't mask anymore, I just have to be really honest with people about where I am. Like, I'm really overstimulated right now. And this is what's going on with me. And it's making me want to be mean to someone. But if I tell you that I just want to be a bitch right now, we can make it like funny. Make fun of a speaker who has no idea who we are and is not listening to our conversation. In the sense of like bringing me back to a jovial place that's not focused on all the noise in the room or the people at the table next to us are screaming at each other. So, and being, especially during my hormone cycles, which I did not realize when you have autism and you have a period, it's insane.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's
really need to get tested for autism.
Yeah, those completely take away all of your abilities to cope and or process things in a way that throws you off of your schedule. And then also your anxiety can't be quieted by medication in a way that makes you accept that this is temporary. It feels like it's going to happen forever. So in those moments being like, if I'm around people, because I want to be around people, being like, I'm physically here, but there's no brain happening. So like, if you want to pick what I'm eating for dinner, that would actually help me and make me feel better. If you want me to top you and rope, if you want to be suspended, tell me exactly how you want to be suspended. I will put you, I know all the things. I'm present enough to keep you safe, but I'm not present enough to decide what we're doing.
It's interesting. I was, as you were talking, I was thinking about how we kind of have like a joke on this show that I'm not fun, but like part of that, I'm not. I'm very serious.
I disagree.
My mom thinks I'm funny. She's the only one.
She's hilarious. I think she's hilarious. We laugh and laugh.
No, but part of it is that like I've come to recognize that I have pretty intense like auditory issues, and I can't be in loud places. And so much of socializing is in loud places, and it's very almost like physically uncomfortable for me. Like I can't do it. And people who want to go to bars, I'm like, I'm not fun. I'm not going. And I joke that I'm a homebody, and I kind of am, but like it's more that I've come to recognize like what my limitations are, and know that like and just say like I've come to and part of it is that like I spent a lot of time of my life completely disassociated, and I've worked really hard to not be so disassociated, but that means that like I'm less tolerant.
Yes,
and I
seem
think
to be the converse of that. Yes.
Yeah, the problem is I could have gone into places and just like had my body there and been in a totally different place. But like you said about not masking, not being able to put that back in, disassociating less has made it so that I can't just like then turn disassociation back on. Like, and that's made it harder. I mean, I'm still a little spacey, don't get me wrong, but like but I've had to come to terms with that to be like, I don't think I can handle this place. Like if I'm at a mall, like I can't like be in certain sensory places without feeling like I'm gonna like lose it.
Yeah, funny enough, I would have used disassociating previously as a serious coping mechanism. Now, since the Band-Aid's off and I'm learning who I am and being more present with that, it's like disassociation doesn't work in that respect, but sometimes it is fun to just disassociate as like a little treat for myself.
Have a little disassociation as a treat.
It's more likely to in just staring, like laying in my studio staring at the cracks in the ceiling, because it's fun to be a block for a while rather than
after we had Allie Awesome on, and she talked about, I started ketamine therapy because she talked about it in the show, and I was like, I need to do that. And so that's been my Wednesday thing. I've been like, you too. I'm like on ketamine on Wednesdays. And, and that's been amazing for me because of that, because I'm like, I can come out of my body for a little bit and then put myself back together, but in a different way. That's amazing.
Save disassociation is something that, serves you and you get to have fun with instead of having to do it for other people.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it. Okay. Let's see. We've done,
if I may, on this with the dissociation stuff, I love what you said, Jessie. Not exactly verbatim, but like you can't turn it back on at a certain point. Like it's this idea of like once the veil is removed and you realize you've been doing this. That was actually really a piece of this year so far for me, of like realizing I can't film the way I used to. Now that I know more about my own pleasure that I'm having also in such like great personal life pleasure, like I cannot go back to acting anymore. Like once I realized how much it was acting.
And
Man, I relate.
Sometimes those realizations, I think we're like, I don't want to go back to that. Now
that I know fully what I was doing.
And as somebody who's like newly getting into sex work, has me very focused on types of work and a persona that is completely tailored to authenticity, doing exactly what I like to do, but also brings me pleasure, because I could talk my way out of a paper bag. I have acted my way through corporate jobs, and it is all just an act, but it's like once you stop doing it, when you find yourself, you're like, ew.
Makes me think of performative normativity is what I call it. I have performed normativity my whole life, and I've have constantly complained about being tired. And they're like, okay, go take a nap. I'm like, oh, it's not that kind of tired.
Not that
Or this,
tired.
or this
My soul
ache,
is tired. Yeah.
right? This ache in your
Yeah.
body. Like I get like my hands used to be in pain all the time. Just have this, and so it took the pandemic for me to realize that it was this performative normativity thing of like, I am so far outside of what society is kind of built on, which is like the cishet white man experience. And so we do all these things to contort ourselves to be. And I'm just like, no wonder why I'm so fucked up. And so that was like my first aha moment of like, oh, you're probably neurodivergent, boo. And then my son was diagnosed as autistic. And then my doctor's like, yeah, that's probably what's going on here too for you, kiddo. But like realizing that I spent so much of my life masking. And so it's like, I didn't know who I was at my core. I didn't know like spirit, who's her? I don't know her. Like what even is that? Like I'm just trying to fucking survive. I don't have time for all these other things. I don't have time to enjoy myself. Or what have you. But yeah, this like, the act of normativity, of the performative nature of that. Also like,
I think that's heavy as a sex worker too. Like that's been the heaviest thing to me about being a sex worker is pretending that I am a housewife for most, like pretending to fit in with what everybody else is doing. And I think that's a big weight, actually.
It's really heavy. And like, I made another realization in my life that I there's no place that I ever feel safe. Ever.
Yeah.
I don't feel safe ever. Like, partially in my own home, which is wild. I live with two of my submissive partners. They're very lovely boys. They're very nice. They're wonderful. But there's still a certain amount of code switching that happens in my house. I'm Black. They're white. There's still, I am non-binary, high femme. They're cishet men that fell in love with a non-binary person with a vulva. So there's like there's still these things that we're working through in terms of like conversations that are not safe, that are not potentially safe conversations sometimes. And this morning I was at my other partner's house, who's also an AFAB, non-binary human. And we're like laying in bed, and I just kind of like, slow tears start pulling out of my eyes, and they're like, what's up? But I'm like, thank you for giving me a place to actually feel safe, like 100% safe. And then it was just like this moment of like communicating with like no words. We do a lot of no communicating with words kind of thing. So whole ass fucking conversation, no one's saying anything. And I think like in my head, I was like, I love you. And out loud, they're just like, I love you too. And I'm like, there we go, having those conversations, these spiritual conversations without words. But like, there's a safeness to be able to, like, I get to disassociate with this person in really fun, fucking weird, sexy ways, which is really neat. But like, I get to make those choices. I get to decide how far down that rabbit hole I get to go. And I trust that they are strong enough and have been vulnerable and honest enough for me to be able to carry me when I'm in those places. And they feel the same way, that I'm able to carry them when they get to disassociate and go deep in these places and, and all of that. But this thing about bridging this bridge of like, what do you do when nothing else works? I have found myself growling a lot. Like I just sit down and I'm like, this shit's fucked. And I just start growling, and I'm like, and just like emoting this, there is this heavy blanket of stress that is pressing down on everything all the time, right? It's so thick. It's like molasses in the air. And it feels like people's spirits are crying all the time. And I'm just like, I don't know how to fix any of this. And the caregiver for me is like, I want to fix all this. And so I growl. and I order expensive ass fucking sushi.
Sushi helps.
I eat some fucking sashimi and like give me that raw ass fucking fish, and I just allow myself to eat that shit with my hands and go to this very primal feral place where I'm like, if the world is gonna be this fucking heavy and I'm out of fucking tools to deal with it, I'm gonna be butt naked in my office eating sushi with my hands, growling, and if anyone opens this fucking door, I'm going to growl at them.
Yeah.
Man, I relate to that so much too. I think all of us are neurodivergent here.
Right.
Yeah, there's so many moments like that between my partner and I, who is also neurodivergent, where we've recognized like, oh, like you're unmasking right now. Like sometimes it'll be like, oh, like what are you doing right now? And I'm like, oh, this is like actually really helpful. We should like, this is an open space where we're both learning what we need to do in the moment in order to just be ourselves and not feel that judgment from the outside world. So it's so important to have those safe people that you can be that with. That is so big. So big.
Just to be a creature. I don't know. I feel like I just feel like I werewolf out, I teen wolf out in my room. It's like, is it a full moon? Who fucking knows? But like sometimes like sometimes I think, again, that idea of the performative normativity, this idea of like what people expect of you, not having to mask. Like when my mask comes off, it truly is like, you don't know what kind of creature is going to be on the other side when that mask comes off. Yeah. And that is me in my natural happy state where like for the next 20 to 30 minutes, every answer to a question is going to be me meowing and purring at you. And I am content and very happy. Or there's growling, and
I
might bite you.
I was thinking about what you were saying in terms of like the being like a codependent caregiver, is what I heard you saying. Because I've been working very, very hard on not feeling like everything that's going on in the world I'm responsible for, which is just like delusional and crazy. But like, I feel like if my partner, one of my kids, is upset about something, I have to do something to like fix it. And I can't fix other people's emotions, but that's been something that's been like very difficult for me personally. And I feel like, I feel like part of me like trying to bridge this is to like look around and not dissociate, but detach from like, which I think is very different from what's going on, and saying like, okay, like I can just let things be. I don't need to try to like fix them, and that's been a way for me to try to like fill my cup back up again, is to say like, okay, so, somebody in my family is having a hard time with this. Like they're just having a hard time with this. There's nothing I can do about it, And
it's the acceptance, acceptance and allowance,
and also developing a confidence in the other individual that they don't need.
Another thing too.
Every turning point, they can probably handle this if I get out of the way and allow them to work it out. And that doesn't mean not giving support. It's tough. It's hard. I'm sorry you're going through this. I can't fix it.
Well,
but
the problem is that the like flip side of this sort of like compulsive caregiving is not trusting people to be able to handle things on their own. And that's
interesting the way they do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the biggest part of it, right? Like, I'm pretty sure that my partner can do the laundry, but can he do it the way that I do it?
Will it be right?
And will it be right? And will it be put away in the place that the kids know where to find it? And like, and that's it's metaphorical. It's very real in my life, but it's also metaphorical. It's like, well, trusting him to do the laundry means trusting him to do the fucking laundry. Let go. Is it done? It's done. It's out of here. Okay. It's gone. It's no longer in the laundry basket. I'm done. Like,
and if the kids can't find it, that's okay. They'll find it.
Yeah, they'll find it. They can go ask Dad.
Right.
I don't know. I didn't do the laundry. Go ask your dad. Right. I mean, that's a really easy thing that I could just say.
Yeah. I like the idea of like connecting with something more animal in the terms of like, what are your base needs? Like what basic level? Like a lot of people think of being animalistic as like hedonism or like I want to be naked and eat meat. But like for my animal as a neurodivergent asexual person is like, I really like to sleep late and I really like to get out of bed. I use my growl when I'm like, okay, you've been in the bed for 2 hours since you woke up. It's time to stand up and be a person. And I let out like noise and then just go about my business. But like my animal wants cushions and pillows and pampering and to just lay in this bed all day and have people bring me whatever the fuck I want.
Yes, that sounds delightful. I like that too.
My nonverbal autistic son growls all the time, and I love that. I think it's so sweet.
I love it. No, I'm definitely doing some growling today. That's
Is there? I have gotten so caught up in what all of you are talking. Okay, Mom.
Mom,
Yeah.
Mom, do you have a short bridge? Do you have a quick fix to get you back and to get you right again?
Yeah, that I have to count on frequently because I'm listening to you guys all talk. We live in a chaotic world. We live in a capitalist world, and it's really very hard not to get caught up in it, right? Because things do seem important. If you don't make money, you're not going to pay that bill on time, and that's worrisome. If it's a tough world. It's very very easy to get removed. Excuse me, from the self. What my bridge is I am fortunate and unfortunate enough that I live in Florida, which is very weird in and of itself, but it's aesthetically
It's a strange thing to say, but I believe you.
Yes. It is a beautiful state. It's a beautiful state, and I love to be outdoors, and I love to take my dogs outdoors. And that is just such a simplistic way of saying it, but making the time and not just, okay, get in the car, everybody. We've got, I've got an hour and 15 minutes that we can go play because then I got to come back and do that. That's not relaxing. That's not building the bridge. That is going through the motions of what I think I need at the time. And it's not easy to overcome that. So much of what I do is when I just get myself just spun out, and I do that a lot. Is I give myself permission to for the next 4 hours. I am off the clock. I am off any clock that anybody needs me. And I will give myself 4 hours and really concentrate. It takes work. It's not effortless. But then I say, oh, look at my dogs. Aren't they beautiful? Isn't it beautiful watching them run in and out and watching their freedom? And, my dogs are not worried that in an hour we have to go home. The dogs aren't sweating that. They're enjoying right where they're at the moment. And it's a huge lesson for me. It has been really helpful for me time and time again. Yeah, I've got this going on. I've got that going on. But, right now I'm here and I am so happy to be here. I don't disassociate much, but I've got pretty severe ADHD and I get overwhelmed easily. So I see several things that have to be done around the house, on my work. I've got to get this report in. I've got to get this dog trained. and it all converges in on my brain at one time. And it is not helpful because I just kind of short out. And so then I go, I start to do the dishes, and then I tell my dog to sit, and then I, go outside, and
apples don't fall far from trees.
No, not really. Sorry, honey.
Also, birds of a feather seem to flock together.
So so how do I bridge that? I bridge that by doing things, by giving myself permission to take the next 2 or 4 hours or the entire weekend off, and really just tending to things that I find lovely and beautiful and worthwhile. There's also the physicality of it. A couple of you guys have talked about that. I need to move. And I don't work out. I'm not a body, builder. I'm not a dancer, none of that. But I do like working in my yard. I do like working with my dogs. I move quite a bit. And that's been really important, because I have tried the therapy of laying in bed for 7 days. I get up after 7 days and still feel shitty. Okay, that one had to go out the window. But if I do find myself moving in things that I enjoy, things that I even. And it's not just all about happiness, it's about purpose, isn't it? We want a purpose.
Yeah.
And that's where I really connect. What is my purpose right now? My purpose right now is to beautify my environment, because I've been given an environment to care about, right? We can look at things. So instead of just, this house is a mess, this is my environment. Why don't I honor it? Why don't I honor this environment? And, I'll be honest, gummies don't hurt through all of this, but
sure.
But I also, when I really want to connect, I don't take the gummies, because I just want to really connect. It's not easy. I'm old and I'm still grappling with all this, but at least I am now at the point, Jessie will tell you, when she was young and I was raising kids, the whole thing was survival, just survival, and doing the next indicated step. And you're so worried about, well, I'm not teaching her this, or I'm not showing an example this way, or you put so much pressure on yourself that you have to be all of these things. And we do have to be a lot of things. We have to show up for our bosses or for ourselves, or we have to get that content, or we got to get that written, because we have to pay bills. But how I bridge it is I now give myself permission to just, you know what, this is my time, and I'm going to spend it the way I want to. And it's typically ways of where I see a beginning and a middle and an end. And I'm grateful for that. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Makes me feel better.
I like that.
Yeah.
I really connect to like the idea of intentionality. And I feel like if there's a word that kind of comes up in what many of us have been saying today, it's that of like awareness, intentionality.
Yes, right. Exactly.
Yeah. And being present too, just being present in the moment and like what's physically around you and the beings that are around you. My pets are so helpful for me too. So I relate to that part as well.
Yeah.
I really strongly learn how to set firm boundaries so that you can either dance or growl and eat meat naked, whatever you need to do, and be in a soft space, whatever. But that really, I was not expecting that. I never know what to expect from these conversations, but in a conversation about, what is spirit, how do we connect to it, how do, which we felt was important, because this is a very heavy time. Foxy really touched on that. Spirits are heavy. It's hard. Everything's hard. We're in capitalism. We're all trapped in it, and things are getting even harder. But what really stuck out to me today was boundaries. And when you learn how to set them, you use those boundaries to make sure you're getting what you need. Stuff. Some unmasking.
I think in terms of time, we need to wrap up. So I want everybody to go around and just say, with the exception of you, Mom, because you're not really selling anything, but does everybody else want to say where they can?
You don't know that, Jessie.
Oh, you're right. I don't know that. I'm sorry.
I am selling puppies.
You're selling a dog. Yes. Okay, go ahead. If you would like
Okay. No. So what was the?
We're just going to go around.
You don't even know what you
if everyone would like to just let us know what they're currently working on and where people can find them.
Yes.
Oh, is that it? Okay. Well, okay. Never mind. I have dogs in Florida. Look me up. Jessie knows my address.
Okay. Except I have such ADHD that I probably don't have it in my phone. I'd probably have to ask you, but
that's so okay.
All right, Mary, where can people find you and what are you working on?
You can find me at my website, which is just xoxomarymuse.com. And who knows what I'm doing? I'm changing what I'm doing every single week. So you can check out any of my socials. I am usually playing piano a couple times a week. I have subscription pages that you can check out. And I don't really know what's in the future for me, but I'm in this lovely transitional period. And if you want to see that process, then feel free to follow me on any of my socials.
Nice. And Milk?
I am all over the internet as either Melissa Milk or Milk Glass with one S. And I'm specifically doing a special for Pride Month and then into the beginning of July where we can do a bondage session, maybe with a few photos, fully edited for $200. I'm really focused on trying to get AFAB, other sex workers or neurodivergent people to book and realize and take the time to be like, if you invest in having someone else focus on you for a few hours, it can also be a huge help. Like, give you time to be like, disconnect from everything, experience pleasure, enjoy yourself. So find me Milk Glass.
Awesome. Hux?
Oh yeah. Me. What's going? Yes. Right now I'm working on a bunch of different projects, but I think the one that's most pressing is FatCon. We're bringing it back in 2025, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it since you turned in your paperwork. Jessie is one of our invited speakers for FatCon 2025. And so folks who are not familiar with FatCon, if you didn't listen to the episode, FatCon is a fat liberation conference based in Seattle, Washington, and really like the root of all things is it's about fat joy. So we're all about celebrating fat joy. And you can follow me on Instagram at Pucksaplenty or Production, or you can follow FatCon at the FatCon.
Nice.
Also, just give me your money. You should just give Black Femmes your money all the time anyway. Don't think anything about it. Just give me your money. And all the links for that are in my bio on the link tree. And if you donate to Production, it's tax deductible. So you can give Black Femmes your money and it'd be tax deductible. That's like real sexy.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is sexy.
It's really sexy.
Yes.
Okay, Trip?
That was a good plug there, Pucks. I like the way you said that. You can also give trans folk your money while you're at it. Give us all your money everywhere.
Yes.
I am everywhere on the internet at XXX Transman, spelled out TRIPLEX TRANSMAN. Currently through the end of 2024, I will be continuing with my every single goddamn day posting schedule. So my content is still rolling at least to the end of the year. After that, I may be changing my scheduling. But I am still producing and performing 24/7 on all my fan sites.
Wait, we are only in May. Are you saying you have your schedule planned out for the rest of the year?
Yep, it is all filmed. It is all scheduled. It is all queued.
We got to get our shit
Only way I can.
Wow.
You are something. Wow, that's amazing.
And there and ready to drop on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So if people want to see me naked on the internet, that's where you can see me.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Jessie Sage, and you can find me on Twitter at sapiotextual and at jessiesage.com. And everybody should be listening to this show. And Emily and I are revamping for season 2. That's going to start on July 1st. And we're getting together the Patreon for that. And that's patreon.com/sapiotextual. And that's my plug. The thing that we wanted to do is have people give like one thing that they would depart to the audience, and do that instead of the what are you listening to? So, Mom, if you could tell the audience one thing, what would you tell them? One piece of advice.
One piece of advice is to, try. It's going to sound trite. I always hated every picture I've ever taken of myself. I look back at pictures of when I'm 20, 30, and 40, and I was a beautiful woman.
You're still beautiful.
You're so beautiful.
I'm not going, friends, that was, I'm just, my point being, if we could just accept ourselves and so much earlier in life, our lives would be so much better, so much easier. If we could disconnect about what do they think of me? What are they thinking? What's going on? And just realize, one, we have no idea what other people are thinking. And it's pretty much of a given that they're not thinking about us. It would be very freeing. It would be very freeing. Let yourself go, ladies and gent. You're doing just fine. You're doing just fine. That would be it. And I'm afraid I have to sign off and go back to work. Is that okay, friends?
Yep. Bye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was great to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to
Joy.
meet you so much. Talk to you all later.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Mary, what's yours?
I wrote down to be more curious and not allow the craziness of the world, which we all mentioned, to harden you or to close your worldview, because the sooner you accept that you don't know anything, the sooner you can learn so much from the people around you, and especially the people that don't look like you or don't have the same world experience as you. So I think it's really important to stay curious and be open.
I love that. Yeah. Milk.
I like that a lot.
I feel like the best piece of advice I can give people is that trying something that you want to try is never a waste of time.
Nice.
That's good.
It's going to lead to money, a positive or a negative outcome. If you're inclined to want to try something, try it. If you want to go back to school, go back to school. You want to travel. If you think you want to cut your hair, cut your hair. The experience will always produce an outcome that leads to knowing yourself better.
I love that.
Nice.
Yeah. Pucks.
Like, you are that bitch, like, always, no matter what, you are that bitch, right? Like, and have, like, it's best to have people in your life that are there that are going to remind you of that when you are low, or when you're feeling like you're not that bitch, but you are. Shit's tough. And so I usually write down on a piece of paper when I'm feeling good, like, you are that bitch and why I'm that bitch. And I have these sticky notes in my office of, like, why I'm that bitch. And sometimes it's like, because you raised a 14-year-old on your own, you are that bitch. Because you got up today. Like, some of them are really random and some of them are, like, really poignant, but, like, surround yourself with people who aren't just yes people. That's important too. Yeah. People to challenge you.
Yeah. Trip.
I am big on the concept of houseplant needs, insofar as we are living organisms that need food and water and sun. So, go outside, look at the sky, drink enough water, brush and floss your teeth, please, wash your ass, all of those good things. Just let's kind of keep the baseline going.
I love
That's really
that.
good.
Good
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah.
Emily, do you have
Jessie,
one?
you got one? Do I have one?
Yeah.
I'm still stuck with that thing I said about newborns. You have been you. since day one.
Yeah.
You're there, you're
Yeah.
you. And touching on what Mary was saying about inner child work, like, it's okay to do those things. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can roll around naked, be silly like your pup play people, or you can, you know, play with toys, or just be in a soft space, whatever it is. Like, I see too many people just masking and avoiding and being, they're doing grown things. It's like, yeah, but it's okay to just enjoy the fact that bubbles are pretty and they pop too. Like, just that.
Yeah.
How about you?
I actually didn't prepare one, but as I was thinking about this, I was thinking that I would probably say that the biggest or the most important thing for me in this career, but also just in life, has been to not let other people tell me who I am, you know, to not be ashamed of who I am, and to not be afraid of what people are going to say about the way that I've chosen to live my life, or my decisions, or my body, or who I am, or what I do. And I think that letting go of fear of that fear, and just not let, I think the best way to say it is to not let other people tell you who you are.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. This has been I want to thank all of you and my mom who stepped off, but like, this has been so filling for me to have all of you come together and have this conversation, but just to think in a deeper way about who we are in the world.
Thank you as always for
Definitely.
facilitating those kind of discussions.
Yeah, it was really lovely.
It's a deep, deep honor to get to be a part of any of this. You guys are incredible people. And Jessie, I just keep saying it, and you pull the coolest people together in the world.
Yeah, this season was fantastic. Oh my God, you covered so many different things. It's
I know.
wild.
I would have had every single person we had in the first season back, because it was just like amazing, but that would have been unruly. So I had to just pick. Yeah. So
this was wonderful.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of When We're Not Hustling. I'm your host, Jessie Sage. You can find me on Twitter at sapiotextual, or visit my website at jessiesage.com. The show was produced by Emily Foster. The music is by Benjamin J. Benamati. Our intern is Anna Fisher. You can follow us on socials on Instagram and Twitter at Not Hustling Pod. Signing off. Have a great week.